Alright, today we're going to tell you about whatever happened to penny candy. You might have heard of the Uncle Eric books. This is an Uncle Eric book. Micah, why is it called an Uncle Eric book?
Because they're letters to his nephew from him.
Like fake nephew, I think. I don't think it's a real thing. So he calls himself Uncle Eric, which his real name is Richard Maybury, so, I mean, he could have just been Uncle Rich, which might have been cooler. But anyway.
Uncle Nick from the other book.
So what he's done is, he's written it to a youth audience, right? And so it's a little bit different. So it's kind of cool, actually, because he'll pretend like he's responding to a letter that he got, and he's like, in your letter you said such and such, or remember in my last letter I said this thing, and it makes you feel like, I don't know, I think it makes it more interesting, don't you? Sure? Than if you just were to read it straight, just like read the same kind of concepts. And there are tons and tons of visuals in here. There's like pictures like this, but then there's these little, like, he'll block out and put a little text box, and then he'll show you these stats and numbers. And the whole, it's kind of weird about these Uncle Eric books, because what he'll do is, the book will go along for about, I don't know, however many pages. In this book it's about, this one's 106. So on page 106 it says spread the word, and it's got this little thing, and then it's kind of over, but then it's kind of not over. And then there's another, like, 80 pages of just stuff. Did you ever look through any of it?
No.
There's just tons of stuff. So this one is an index for understanding legal systems and if they're in line with natural law, and he lists every country and he gives them a rating. And then he goes through and he has all these charts and real wages and the oil myth, and he keeps going beyond the basics, and then he's got these charts, just tons and tons of information. But it's geared toward a younger audience, so we adults, now this is an economics book. It's an economics primer, and I always recommend people read it first, regardless of their age, just to get their feet a little bit wet for understanding some basics about economics before they get super scared and run the other direction. So, Micah, what are a few of the ideas about money that you didn't understand before you read this?
Inflation.
You understand inflation now?
Pretty much, yeah.
What else?
I don't remember. Probably know more stuff, but I don't remember.
Because it's been a while? What about, like, gold standard and...
Yeah, that gold standard, inflation, that's kind of part of inflation now.
And what real money and fake money is. Here's some other here's another thing he does a fabulous job, is he does a lot of stories and a lot of historical examples. Yeah. So he'll say, this country was having this problem, and here's why they had this problem, and he makes it so easy to understand. He simplifies it so much that you're like, oh my goodness, I think I'm kind of getting economics. Here's another, he talks about some basic economic principles that you have to understand, like boom and bust, and velocity, like when money gets spent more and more and more, and what hyperinflation is. There's a lot of really, really good basic economic principles that I don't know, they're just, I guess it's just because of how government talks about them and how specialists talk about them. And they have all these fancy charts and they make it seem so super complicated, but Richard Maybury makes it so simple. Yeah. Makes it, you read it like, you were like 10 or 11, and it held your interest pretty well, and you learned a whole bunch of stuff, so even younger kids can get a lot out of it, but I'm telling you, even adults will understand things in a new way. Now, every Richard Maybury book is natural law is the foundation. Does this book talk about the 2 laws?
Which ones?
How you should never get, what are they? Should never get in anybody else's business. Oh, yeah, here they are.
You talked about that.
Here they are. Do all you have agreed to do. Do not encroach on other persons or their property. He says those are the 2 laws that every civilization has had in common, and a civilization can't thrive without them, and economics has to be founded on those 2 principles or it can't work.
Yeah.
So what, do you remember any of the stories or historical examples from the book?
I remember he talks about wars a lot.
Yeah.
Talks about Washington some.
Yeah.
Like that.
Yeah. Yep. So it's like 100 pages.
It's just like he explains something. He's like, and here's 27 examples on how this actually works. So you're not like, well, is that actually how it is? Because he gives you 100 examples. You're like, oh, okay, makes sense.
Yeah. So it makes it really believable.
Yeah.
One thing I wanted to say too, one of the things I love about him, he says, this is in the author's disclosure. He has this in the author disclosure of a lot of his books. For reasons I do not understand, writers today are supposed to be objective. Few disclose the viewpoints or opinions they use to decide what information is important and what is not, or what shall be presented or omitted. I do not adhere to this standard and make no pretense of being objective. I am biased, in favor of liberty, free markets, and international neutrality, and proud of it. So I disclose my viewpoint, which you will find explained in detail in my other books. Then he goes on to say, for those who have not yet read these publications, I call my viewpoint juris naturalism, meaning the belief in a natural law that's higher than any government's laws. And governments have to obey those natural laws, and in economics has to be in harmony with those natural laws. So it's little things like, for example, if an individual were to just debt indefinitely, just spend money and 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 spend money, and they didn't care how much money they were making.
Well, they weren't actually spending real money. They were just gaining debt in that case. Because they wouldn't have any money to actually spend if they were just getting more debt.
Right, so his argument is, that person's breaking a natural law. If you can apply it to the person and it would destroy them financially, then it's going to destroy the government financially.
Right.
It's really that simple. If the government goes and spends more than they make indefinitely, then they'll go bankrupt. Just like any individual will go bankrupt. It just takes longer for government to go bankrupt. So he bases everything on natural law, which I absolutely love. And he is biased. And
That's
he's
good.
Yeah.
He's biased in favor of good stuff, so it's all good.
That's what I think. Very readable, very, very easy language, very well explained. And then another thing that you can look for is that he'll bold certain words. So if it's a super important word, I missed one?
Right there.
So right here, economics is bolded. That means in the back of the book, he's got a definition for you. Does he? Maybe that's not. Is it in here? Yeah. Yeah, so you can go back here to his glossary.
The study and production of distribution and wealth.
Yeah. You can go back here and he'll explain supply and demand. One of the most interesting things I learned in this book is why our coins are clipped. You remember that?
I do remember that.
You know how all our coins have little ridges around them? There's a specific reason for that, and I'm not going to tell you what it is, so you'll get the book and read it.
Yep, go read it, yo.
Yeah, it's super awesome. It goes all the way back to ancient times. So, whatever happened to penny candy, it's a must-read for our kids and our family to have a foundational economics understanding, because you can't go out there in the world and be successful unless you get it, unless you get the basics, and this is the best place to start. Richard Maybury, Uncle Eric books. He's got a lot of other good ones. We'll probably talk about some of them sometime in the future, but I really think you should get it and enjoy it. It's totally worth, totally worth your time and money. So, like us on Facebook and spread the word, and we will see you next time.